Hello again, welcome everybody to another edition of All Things Irish and Rock and Roll. This series is to meet up with some of the musicians that graced the Irish music scene throughout the 60s, 70s and 80s and get their stories. This series is produced by Brendan Finglas. Today's guest is the renowned Irish drummer from the 70s and 80s, Brian Despard.
Well done, Gareth. All right.
Okay, we'll just start off, Brian. I just want to ask you, can you just give us an idea of what started you off with your interest in music and, going way back to your childhood times?
When I was a kid. Probably the first thing I ever took note of was the Big Bopper. It was a 78 my grandparents had.
All right.
The Big Bopper, and his voice, he's such a low registered voice, it stuck with me.
Yeah.
And then obviously the Beatles came along and the rest of all the 60s and stuff, but primarily the Beatles, I think, got me. The Who, of course, were just because of their sheer power.
Yeah.
It's something else. And then all the usual stuff we did as teenagers, the Beatles, the Stones, the Kinks, the Small Faces, then on to Led Zeppelin.
Hanging outside the Golden
Yeah, shiver at night, yeah.
Listening to the sounds.
Yeah. And then down the road it just expanded a bit into people like Zappa and other. But mainly rock was the thing of our time, I think.
Yeah.
Drummers, Ringo Starr. People still ask me today who my favourite drummer is.
Yeah.
It's still Ringo.
Would that be a reason why you got into drums rather than into guitar? Or
well, the reason I didn't get into guitar is my fingers were too big. They wouldn't fit between the strings. That's true.
Okay.
You don't bought me a guitar.
Yeah, they're pretty chunky.
Yeah, I know. They wouldn't fit between, so I gave that up really quick. And I was listening to Radio Luxembourg one night and I heard the Who live at Leeds.
Yeah.
And Keith Moon, his performance of that was just storming. It's great. So I took note of that.
Yeah.
And I used to try and practice at home with knitting needles and something that resembled a drumstick.
Right, yeah.
And it just went on from there.
What would you describe as your musical influences then from that time? If you could pick out a few of them, what would you think?
The musical influence, from a drumming point of view, it had to be the primary one would be John Bonham.
Right,
definitely, because he was a beast.
So, Led Zeppelin.
Well, Led Zeppelin, and another one of my favourites is Ainsley Dunbar.
Right.
I think he's Scottish, and he played with the Blues Breakers at one point,
Right,
but he went on to join Zappa.
Yeah. So tell me, how did you progress from this love of music and interest to going from that point into your first band? How did that happen?
Well, first band, and I had a bit of a drum kit as far as I remember. It was bits and pieces I bought in hock shops and whatever I could gather together from bits and bobs. And I used to hang out at the Golden Discs, that's where I met you.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Just for the viewers, Brian and myself, we know each other for how long? More than 50 years anyway.
Yeah, 50. We used to rehearse in Goldie's shed in the back of his house. And he had a Fender amp as far as I remember, bassman.
Yeah, a Fender bassman amp. Yeah.
And Brendan has a guitar, and we had a couple together kit, and you played rhythm. And we'd rehearse Saturday afternoons with Goldie and go home, and then we'd come back at 3 o'clock in the morning and rehearse with somebody else on bass who used to play rhythm guitar. And that's where his bass playing started. And Goldie never knew a thing about it. We were terrible. That's what you do.
Yeah.
That's what you do. We actually did very well.
So what you're saying is really, just for clarity for the viewers, is that we had a band, the first band, and the bass player wasn't really up to what we were doing, and neither was the rhythm guitarist, and the rhythm guitarist was me. I couldn't play guitar properly, really,
I know.
But the bass player couldn't play bass.
At all.
So what we did was, on days when he couldn't come, we would secretly rehearse.
Yeah, and sometimes 3 o'clock in the morning.
I was asked to play bass by
that's right.
the guitar player, and that's how I got into playing bass. And then it was much better for all of us, wasn't it?
By a long shot.
Okay. That band, can you mention any gigs that band did?
Yeah, I remember us supporting Horselips in the Foxrock Folk Club.
Yeah.
And the Chieftains.
And wasn't that a very popular venue at the time?
With
lots of sort of fairly well-known acts playing there?
Yeah, a lot of folk acts. When we come along, we're a little jazz rock outfit.
Yeah.
But
you would have the likes of Louis Stewart playing there, and a few other big names of that
on
time.
the scene, you know,
Yeah.
Louis.
And can you describe what the stage and the venue, how the structure of
Well,
it
the
was?
stage was more or less, this stage was bigger, but this is more or less this shape.
Yeah.
And it was, we were all squeezed in as you normally are. And in front and to the sides where everybody sat. And,
So the audience were on the left-hand side and the
and
right-hand
in the
side.
middle.
But
And it was
nothing-
quite a narrow building.
Yeah.
So it was
Yeah.
split from here to maybe 8 or 10 feet away
Yeah,
from the stage.
okay,
Really small.
yeah.
But it was, I enjoyed those gigs.
Yes.
Particularly.
Yeah. So moving on from that band, what happened after that? Can you tell me?
After that, you went to Dave Prim, I think.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
And then I went to Dave Prim after you.
Oh yes, the Dave Prim band.
Yeah.
And they were based where?
Clonmel.
Clonmel, yeah.
Yeah.
And Dave Prim, he was quite well known at the time.
He
wasn't
was. He had a blues band, and he's a good guitar player. And we were trying to write the original stuff in Clonmel, but
Yeah.
Dave had a record shop to run, and it just wasn't the
Yeah.
time.
And Dave Prim, of course, sadly has passed away
Yeah.
a few years ago.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
I always liked Dave. He's a good fella.
Yeah.
But he just hadn't the time to dedicate to
Yeah.
do what he needed to be done.
Did you do many gigs with him at that time?
We did a few. We did a few gigs.
Yeah.
We had, and that's some really nice people there. There's one person still in touch with.
After the Dave Prim band, now we're talking about around 1974-ish time, I think, around that,
yeah,
73,
yeah.
74.
Yeah, would have been right.
So what would have, how did your career progress?
Red Peters.
That was 1974.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you forgot. Do you want to
missed
just
that.
mention a bit about that
Yeah,
time?
Red. There's Mark Costigan, myself, Garrett, James Delaney, Jimmy Faulkner, Honor Heffernan, and Red, and sometimes Chris Meehan.
Yeah.
On board
Yes.
as well, besides James. And it was a great band, really good band. And Red, when you saw Red's leg move, you knew the groove was on. It was grooving for him. And we had some great gigs. Jimmy's such a fine guitar player, isn't he?
Oh, yeah.
And Mark.
Yeah. It was great.
Yeah,
Oh, great.
but
all
band
right,
were so
yeah,
good.
yeah.
And Pat Horan.
Yes, that's right. On the
Push it,
congas.
little
Yeah,
Pat.
yeah.
And we did Black Rock Park, the usual stuff. And I remember one gig we did in Greystones, where Red's brother, I can't remember his name, but he went up to the bar. Were you there?
I remember. I know what you're going to
And
say.
Red was here in front of me, Jimmy Faulkner was here, and I think you were on this side.
Yeah.
And he would up and he'd come back with a tray full of pints of Guinness for a band. He's getting onto the stage and didn't need trip. And they would do it everywhere. And Red slipped and he had a pint in his hand. Anyway, he slipped and fell into Jimmy's amp beside me. And I looked over and he was lying on his back with the pint on his chest. And I said, "You alright, Red?" "Cool, man, it's cool." But you don't get this in a day job, do you?
Yeah,
you
what?
don't. You don't get this type of event
Yeah,
in a day
yeah.
job.
Yeah.
And it was great. You know, that was a great band actually.
Oh, it
really
was
enjoyed
great.
playing with them.
I remember Red, he always wanted that sort of backbone whack on the snare.
Yeah,
remember
once
going
he
on
felt
and
that,
hit it,
yeah.
you know. Yeah.
Once he felt that, he was off.
That
Where did we do it? Did we do the Sledding band then? We did. It was Jimmy Sledding then.
Okay, right.
I think I'm right now, could be a bit confused, but yeah, I'd say Sledding, Jimmy, because you were in Jimmy, I was on you,
Yeah.
bloody dog. Jimmy, Danny was leading Jimmy's band.
That's right.
Yeah,
Danny
Danny
O'Keefe
O'Keefe
was the
yeah.
original drummer of the
Yeah,
Jimmy Sleddon
yeah,
band,
he was leading.
which formed out of a tour done by Eric Bell with the Eric Bell Band, and Danny
Oh, yeah.
was the drummer,
Yeah.
and I was the bass player.
Yeah.
And then he went off to join a show band, I think, didn't he?
Yeah,
Danny
he
O'Keefe.
did.
And then
yeah.
you replaced him in the Jimmy Sleddon band.
Yeah. Well, I'd say one thing for Jimmy, I have massive respect for him as a musician.
Yeah.
Because he brought us along. He upped our game big time. And it wasn't sort of gentle persuasion, it was the threat of getting the sack. But it worked, and I'll always thank him for that.
Yeah.
Because I remember we were doing this tune called Innocence.
Yes.
And the first bit is in 12/8, but the first bit was in 3/4. We'd worked out these riffs we played together in 4/4. Could I get it? No. In the studio, it took about, we were in his Trend Studios, remember?
Yeah.
And it
Yes.
took nearly all night for me to get the damn thing right. And I got it in the end. But I got a stern talking to Jimmy. But we went home, we went over to his house and we rehearsed it and we worked it out and we eventually got a link that made it work.
Yeah.
And that's the type of thing that made Jimmy fortunate to think about things,
Yeah.
bring your game up a bit.
Yeah.
And you know, any musician who does that is cool in my book.
Yeah.
Because everyone benefits.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Jimmy was a great, yeah, he was as you described, but wasn't he a great sort of team player though? Like,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was a great guy to have a bit of fun and a bit of crack with, you know?
I remember once we went for, this is after you left, we used to have a band meeting every now and again with somebody in Holt. And Jimmy Gibson, the great Jimmy Gibson, what a man for harmony and chords, brilliant. And Jimmy always had a bit of a drink problem, but he was the nicest I ever meet. We were up in the Summit Inn one night, and we had about 5 minutes of business, and the rest was just drinking. And we were coming driving down the back road, down the hill of Holt, and Jimmy Sleb said, "Let's go for a walk down the cliff walk." Okay, we were marching down through the underbrush, and Jimmy Gibson is behind me, and there's a big grey slab in the middle of the pathway, and Jimmy Gibson says, "Don't walk on that. It's not what you think it is." So Jimmy Slevin went forward and round it. I went round it. Next thing I hear this big splash. Jimmy had walked straight into it. And he looked to here and water. Jimmy Slevin had recorded it on audio tape. He had a cassette running. And poor Jimmy, I thought he was going to die of hypothermia on the spot. Because there was no meat on him at all. So we had to just put him in the van and get him home really quickly before he died off.
Yes, yeah.
That was one of the funniest moments ever. Remember we did the Fall of the Thunder tour?
Yes.
And Jimmy's stage clothes, a t-shirt in a brown paper bag for a 16-day tour. But these are the great characters that make up the scene, you know, the memorable people.
Can you describe when we were playing up in Northern Ireland, up in the hotel that was full of the bugs, and we were all trying to move Jimmy's bed?
Oh, that was in Donegal, the Green
was
Castle Hotel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was an infestation of flies from the river coming in the windows, and Jimmy's room was like it was a hive, it was covered in flies. We were trying to move the bed down the corridor, and the night porter called us. Usual stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So we eventually ended up with 3 beds in one room or something like that. But the other time in the north, where we were playing Coleraine University.
Yeah.
And we were pulled by the UDA.
Oh yes, describe that. And Jimmy was very worried, wasn't he?
It was very funny actually. It was we were doing Coleraine and we were staying in Port Rush. And we come back in the car into Port Rush. We were staying in Northern Counties Hotel. And this car pulled in Blue Avenger, and 3 guys got out in battle dress and jeans. I thought jeans were a bit strange. So they pulled us up, held Garrett and myself against the wall with guns to the back of our heads. And Jimmy was being questioned in the car by another guy. And the night porter came out and said, "These lads are okay," and they buggered off. So we inquired later if it was the UDA. So we were sitting there, and I was just glad they didn't shoot us. We went into the bar. Garrett and myself were just so glad we were still alive. It was suddenly a whole new lease of life. You're great. Jimmy Slims was, grumpy, and of course we started fighting, didn't we? He was grumpy old buggers. "Look, you're alive, they didn't kill you." "Yeah, I don't care, it shouldn't have been all this stuff." And he stormed off to bed. And the next morning we were sitting at breakfast, and there was a silence you could cut a knife with. And he's sitting there at breakfast, suddenly Jimmy just tips his breakfast into his lap. Eggs and everything all over him, beans, because that was our trigger.
That sort of broke the
silence. Yeah, it
silence.
exploded into laughter after that. But you know, it's full of these moments. It's just always in that film.
Well, okay, so moving on from the Jimmy 7 band, like at that stage, I was no longer in the band.
Yeah.
I had gone off to do my thing elsewhere, and then you went on to do things, and I sort of lost track of you, more or less at that stage.
Yeah, because you were in the Middle East or something.
Yeah. So can you go on about sort of we're now talking about like the late 70s into the early 80s.
Late 78, 79. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we formed a band called The Cheaters. It was myself, Michael Hagan, and he's now gone. And Jerry Hendricks, the great Jerry Hendricks, what a great guitar player Jerry is. And a bass player called Trevor Boyce, who we stole from the Freshman. And Trevor is one of the nicest, he's a great bloke, really good lad. But we became known as the best drinking band in Ireland. We were pretty grim, really, as a band, just a mess.
Right.
But we after that lasted about a year, as these things do, and then I moved on to did the show band scene then. I think I joined, I went to Drogheda and joined the Gentry.
All right.
Up in Drogheda. Lived there for a while. We went to Denmark. We were in Scandinavia for 3 months. And we did an album that's still in a bank vault in Drogheda somewhere.
Yeah.
And that was fun. Touring that part of the world was great crack.
Yeah, I remember the Gentry.
The band were great. It wasn't the Gentry you're thinking of.
Oh.
It was a girl called Trish Rogers and Eric Sharp.
Oh,
which
sorry.
turned out to be a cousin of mine, a
Right.
distant cousin.
Yeah.
And the band were really good,
Yeah.
really good, and sort of poppy guitar type things, and
Yeah.
good writers. But it never happened in the end.
Right, okay.
So we came back and I left, and the band started drifting apart.
Right.
Then after that I joined. I was with Sheba for 9 months.
Can you tell us about your time with Sheba? That was an eventful sort of time, wasn't it?
Not really. No, but the band were great because we had Anto Drown on the guitar,
Right.
Tony Malloy on bass,
Yeah.
and Anto's brother Paul on keyboards.
Yeah.
And it was great. I was starting to get into this jazz rock thing. We used to do just jam around all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then you have the usual pop stuff when the girls come on. It was all right.
Yeah.
They're decent enough to work for.
Yeah.
No problem.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. So can you tell us a bit about the Irish musicians that you would have been hanging around with or in contact with at the time? People that you might have good respect for? Or,
Oh yeah,
things
easy
like-
peasy. Remember when I was learning, I'm terrible. I love to learn stuff and know to me because I was history with Skid Row and Gary Moore and Brush because I saw the return gig at the stadium and when they just finished touring Led Zeppelin and they were
I
phenomenal.
was at that.
That yeah, they were phenomenal. Really, just way ahead of their time by a long shot.
Yeah.
And I heard they were playing up in Dalkey with Dave Gaynor and Noel, and so I went up and pestered Noel. He took time out of his gigging time to talk to me and give me advice, and Dave Gaynor as well, another great drummer.
Yeah.
And further down, Robbie Brennan. I
Yeah.
got to know Robbie. We were playing with the Prim Band. I was playing, did a gig with Dave in Punafuka House Hotel.
Oh, yeah.
And Step Aside were just starting at the time.
Yeah.
And Robbie had this lovely kit of Heyman and he let me play him for a support band. And I got talking to him and I got to know Robbie very well over the years. And to me, he's still one of our best, very, very best players that ever came out of this place.
Yeah.
Because he had that magic touch, he had that groove factor.
Yeah.
That-
So, any things you want to relate to about any personalities that were around at the time?
Full of personalities.
like people that came to the gigs,
Yeah, there's a young fella called Brendan English used to come to the gigs a lot, and he was some great cracker.
He was.
Yeah, it was. And Ben.
Ben Hannigan.
Yeah, great fun though.
Yeah.
Really,
Wasn't-
Morris Hotel.
Yeah.
Do you remember the guy with the glasses and the long hair?
Jerry Lockwood.
Yeah.
Oh, Jerry, yeah. Oh, Jerry, there's some stories with Jerry. Some I can't reveal here because they're not for sort of young ears. Shall we say.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
You remember Peggy's leg?
Yes, that Don Harris, what a player.
Yeah.
What a player, yeah.
John
We're all
Brady.
Don.
John Brady.
Don went on to live in Switzerland and he played on the demo tapes for Let's Dance for David Bowie's album. Because I met somebody who was on the session and Noel Rodgers was brought in by Bowie because I think Bowie lived in Switzerland at the time to help sort the album out. And he just hired local boys and Don was one of them
Yeah.
to do the demos.
Right.
And Bowie liked what he heard, but
Yeah.
Noel Rodgers got his team into like Tony Thompson and people like that to finish the album.
Okay, right.
But that's the last I heard of Don.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he died of cancer sometime later. But he's another great dancer, great drummer. But he has that saying he has when he did the gig in one of the clubs in town. He was a reader, and he screwed up some part of it. And there was a Norman Wisdom show he was doing. And he looked at Norman Lucas looked at him and said, "What was wrong there?" And Don goes, "Tacit the Mincers." He's a great character, he was a great player though. In Peggy's day, he was really him and Vince Power.
Yeah.
Was it Vince Power? Vince Duffy.
Vince Duffy.
Vince Duffy, yeah.
He's a real Chris Squire type player.
Yeah,
But
that's
such dynamism in their play.
And John Brady was there as
John,
well.
what a gentleman.
Lovely guy,
Yeah,
yeah.
what a gentleman.
Yeah.
That was terrible. I love John.
Yeah.
Really bad.
Yeah.
And Paul Moran is another one from Clannad. He was in the Bogey Boys originally.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
A lot of time, Paul's a really subtle player. Paul McIntyre, just the list is getting bigger.
Yeah.
And a really subtle player. And there's some good players out there like Tom Jemison. And I know when Kidney came to London. It's just that we still have that.
Yeah.
We still generate good players.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Yeah.
You know, and
Right,
it's
yeah.
a thing I'm very proud of. And I think we all are really. It
Yeah.
should be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it holds us in good stead.
So moving on from that time, like sort of what way did things progress for you after all of that?
After that, what was it? After Sheba, people, Flo McSweeney and Ed Darragh got in touch and we formed Toy Rhythm.
Ah, yes.
in the 83, I think it was. And it was Flo, Ed, myself, John Kearns was on bass at the time, and Niall McSweeney was on keyboards and guitar. And we, we concentrated on doing all original material. And we rehearsed every night of the week. That's my philosophy anyway. If you want to do successful stuff, you got to work every single day.
Yeah.
And we started to do gigs, this, that, and the other. And there's a great story attached to this. Is we were doing the Ivy Rooms on Sunday afternoon, and so Lon Brennan, Clan's tour manager, came up and said, "Would you like to open the show in Guidor for their Irish tour?" I said, "Great," and he said, "We'll pay it." Oh, even better. So the following Friday, myself, Dermot, O'Mara, and Leo brought the gear up and set it up. And the lads, the bass player and the guitar player, arrived early Saturday morning. And we did sound check early because they had to go back to pick their girlfriends up to bring them up, because there's no trains in Guidor in that area in Donegal. So they had to go to Buncran or Bundoran to pick them up.
Yeah.
So after the sound check, we were in the dressing room, and Lon Brennan was there chatting away. And the two lads demanded money for petrol to go and pick their girlfriends up, and also demanded money for their train fare from Dublin to Sligo, and the bus fare up to Bundoran. And we looked at them, and they said, "No." And they said, "Well, if you don't give us the money, we'll leave in the band." And myself, Ed and Flo just looked at us and said, "Bye." So what happened then was we had just released a single, Junior Discovers Electricity, which is sort of synthy poppy type thing produced by Bill Whelan. And we were sitting there, okay, we've got a gig to go, and we've no band. This was myself, Flo, Ed, and that was it. So Paul Brennan came in, the bass player from Clan, came in and said, "We'll do it with you." Okay, then. So on we went, and we got on stage, and I don't know what we were doing, but they were picking things out of there nobody knew, but we'd give it a go anyway. And during the beginning of the set, I noticed this guy creeping under the tent to avoid paying in. There was very hardly anyone there at this time. And Smiley was behind, he was a DJ, and Smiley Butcher.
Yeah.
And I thought, Jesus, we have a single to do here. What are we going to do? Smiley says, "I've got it. I'll put it on, you mind to it, and we'll be grand." So he put it on, we started playing, and it was going fine till the thing skipped. And it skipped. I started laughing, and Flo looked around and wondered what was going on, saw me laughing, and then the thing stuck. And I saw Smiley was on his knees behind the decks. I had to stop, and then this guy who crept in front of the stage stood up and says, "You're only a bunch of frauds." Brilliant. Oh, that classic memory.
That's a good one.
Oh,
That's a good one. Yeah.
Oh, that was so good. And just a little fist, "You're only a bunch of frauds." And that was funny. And he got paid. They paid us. Great, brilliant.
Oh, gee.
They're a fine bunch of people. We stayed at the hotel. They have a pub up there, and the hospitality was just superb.
Yeah.
And they were great. I was sorry to hear Lone died.
Good. Okay, yeah.
But they were great. Absolutely.
Was Mick playing in the band?
No, Mick wasn't there then.
All right,
yeah.
okay.
And it was
yeah.
me, Alan Pentley, Robbie Overson,
Yeah,
the band, and a guy called Mick Railton on keyboards, who I don't know where we got him, but he was great.
Yeah.
Liverpudlian lad. We went to Iceland everywhere with the thing, and Sean is a great performer, great singer,
Yeah.
and a great guy to work for.
Yeah.
Never a problem.
Yeah.
Really good. I always respect him for that.
Yeah.
And then after that, those Nervous Animals.
Oh, yeah.
Moved to Sligo then. They were great.
Wow, you've had a lot of bands.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now you're talking about the mid '80s now, aren't you?
86, 87.
Yeah.
No, hang on, I went to Logan after the Animals, that's right. Went to Johnny Logan after
Yeah.
those Nervous Animals.
Okay,
Went
right.
there for
Yeah.
9 months.
Yeah.
And we released one single called Damien, which Donald Lunny produced.
Yeah.
And it was great.
I remember that single.
Yeah, a really good single.
Right. Yeah.
And then after that, after I finished the tour with Sean, I just said, I've had enough of Ireland. Because not to really know all the promoters, as you know yourself, you get to know everybody, you start to know all the people coming to the gigs.
Yeah.
So time for change, so I
Yeah.
went to London.
Right. So that really was, changed your life then. You started doing something different, really.
Well, yeah, I went, got a job as a drum teacher,
Yeah.
and I did that for a while. It was meant to be a 6 month contract. Did it for 5 years.
Yeah.
It's great. And then I got the job with Steve Marriott, which is a lifetime lesson.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. What a singer.
Yeah.
What a singer. I saw him, we were doing a gig in Sunderland one night, and he was where you are from the mic, and you could hear him down the end of the road. But what a singer. Really, really good. Great to, the audition. Went along to one of the gigs, have a chat with him. He says, come round to the house tomorrow in Essex. Called round to the house tomorrow, we went to the pub for the day. That was it. Gig in Sunderland the next night.
Great.
No, he's great to work for. And, you know, and he's a real loss to the industry in the sense of, you know, when we look up to older musicians and we're kids, and they lay a template that you aspire to get to, like guitar players and Hendrix and all that, stuff, Bonham and me and stuff like that. Yeah. And Marriott to me was sort of, he set the standard for soul singing, and he was so good. He really was.
Okay,
great.
right. Yeah.
And he's another great loss.
Yeah.
And after that, after Marriott, I started getting involved playing country music in the pubs in London. I did that for a while, and it got to me. It's just the standard of musicianship in Ireland is far higher than the per capita than the standard in London is generally, I find.
Okay.
Because it's just, it was just got to me when that stopped.
Yeah.
But I was moving into doing sound anyway.
Yeah. Would you just tell us a bit about, like, up to the present day, like you're doing all of that now?
I got into, by chance I met the guy I used to work with at this music school we were working at. He introduced me to, he was building a studio for this local authority, and he said, do you want to work there? Because he said, look, I can't do it, can you do it? And it was a 24 track digital studio, ADATs with RADATs, and it was a good place, you know, so we finished setting up, got it in, and worked there for 5 years, teaching sound.
Right.
And then I went to college, did a degree in sound, and got involved doing live stuff. And that's my mainstay now, doing an awful lot of live as opposed to studio.
Right. Okay.
I've also started a audio sample website,
Yeah.
solidstatesamples.com.
Right. Yeah.
And that's in the process now of being launched. You know,
So if anybody wants any sound effects or anything like
it's all
that,
there.
you're the guy to go to.
Yeah.
What's your website address?
solidstatesamples.com.
Yeah, okay,
That's
so
it.
there you are. If anybody has any work they need done in the sound side, Brian's your man.
I've anything from anything.
Yeah. So tell me, if you're, I think we'll just round up by, I'll ask you one more question. If you look back on your life in the music, is there anything that you would change now looking back on?
Nah,
it?
not a thing.
Well,
absolutely not.
I thought you were going to say that.
Yeah, you know I'm not
I
saying
thought
that.
you were going to say that.
No,
you
it's
know.
chance. I don't think any of us would have done that, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, I think that's been a very revealing, a very interesting story you've told us today, Brian. And it's been great having you here. So
That's great, Lee. It's great
I
to
think
meet
I'll
you.
just round up this edition of All Things Irish and Rock and Roll. And thank you, Brian, for coming.
You're welcome.
And tune in for the next episode very soon. Goodbye.
Be coming home back.